All right. Hola, good afternoon. Namaste, everyone. Welcome to the Tech Geek Virtual Boardroom. I am your host, Sukriti, and I'm here with yet another panel discussion. As you all know, Tech Geek Goddess kicked off its 8th edition on August 22nd, 2022. And Geek Goddess, popularly known as TG3, aims at bringing women tech enthusiasts to the forefront to celebrate and showcase their coding talent to the top tech companies in India and abroad. So Geek Goddess 2022 has more than 35,000 registrations already till now. And since our inception, we have tried to bring women in tech on this forum for not just competition, but also for learning and advancing in their careers. It's important for us as we, host this event and not just make it women in tech, but a huge part of our lives, which is diversity, inclusivity, right? Our conference that we host on the as a grand finale has a very important topic of diversity and inclusion, which of course covers women in tech, men in tech, LGBTQ, as well as especially able people. So moving forward, ladies and gentlemen, today's conversation is special as I have a bunch of super women in tech with me to talk about women techies and the career breaks. According to a market study, India's women in tech feel a break is detrimental to their career progression, and the industry needs to actively support their re-entry. We will begin this conversation with talking about the change or evolution over the years, the challenges faced after a career break, and some exciting stories from our heroes here. That being said, in our endeavor to bring women in tech on this forum, we bring you some inclusive and exciting stories from the women leaders for the women in tech. Please join me in welcoming the stellar panel here with me today. I have Arundathi Rao, who is the Director, India Global IT HPE, Geetha Kannan, Founder and CEO of Wequity, Lakuma Tumati, Consulting Leader Deloitte, Pallavi Arora, Vice President, CX Center, Cisco, Sharbani, Sharbani Ray, Vice President, DE&I and CSR Genpact, Sudha Kiwi, Vice President, Dell Technologies India. Welcome and thank you so much for joining us, ladies. And before we kickstart, I would want to know one thing that you've not shared with anyone, one trivia about you as you introduce yourself to our audience today. So let's start with you, Arundathi. We cannot hear you.
Because I had muted my line. So a very, very happy afternoon to all of you, and thank you, Sukriti, for that warm welcome. So I'm Arundathi, and in the industry for more than 36 years now, and all of it in technology, working in various roles, and maybe defense R&D and Hewlett Packard are the two major ones which I did, and the rest of it was hardly for 2 years. So now 25 plus years in the HP world, Hewlett Packard world, and the head of IT in Hewlett Packard Enterprise for India. So one trivia, I love traveling, and I visit these artisans in the nook and corner of the country, in those villages, in those narrow alleys, go and meet with the artisans, go buy from them. I always wear handwoven, so I buy always handwoven work, and I get it from the weavers directly. So I'm on these trails. In fact, I came back from my North Kerala trail last week. I went to Malabar and visited some of these artisans, weavers, and beautiful temples, and I came back. So I love arts and crafts and heritage, and I go on these trips more often.
Thank you, Arundathi. So, this brings out fairly that being women in tech, apart from what you're good at, there's something else that you like, right? So that was the whole idea of bringing this up together. Thank you, Arundathi, for that. Geetha?
Hi, I'm Geetha Kannan. I'm the founder and CEO of a company called Wequity. Incidentally, it looks at how to maximize potential of women and the organizations that employ women. So I'm in the heart and center of it, and I love the name Geek Goddesses. Oh, I love it. Especially after Navaratri, I feel a goddess myself. So this is a lovely way to kickstart the whole thing. A little trivia, I mean, I've got 3 decades in the industry, known more for my whole work in the space of diversity and inclusion, especially in the women in tech space. And I actively, I mean, I wouldn't call myself an activist, but I try to be very vocal about what our needs are in the industry. Just a small trivia about myself. I started meditation from the age of 6. Was I forced into it? I don't know. I don't remember, but it served me well.
Wow, that is the word I would say. Thank you, Geetha, for that. Let's move on. Lakuma.
Hey, thank you. Thank you so much. Hello, everyone. I'm Lakuma Tumati, Managing Director from Deloitte Consulting's India offices. Glad to be a part of the Tech Geek Goddess event and, to share my thoughts. And this has been a passion area for me too, and also to learn, from the panel. In terms of trivia, of course, all of us live with a lot of unconscious bias, and there's one that in the society is that women are not great at driving and things like that. But then I'm probably very good at driving, love long drives. Not just that, my husband and my father both give me the car when there is a very narrow parking, parallel parking, or reverse parking. That's probably a little bit of trivia.
Definitely, we are here to break the stereotypes. Okay, thank you so much, Lakuma, for that. Pallavi?
Hello, everyone. I'm Pallavi Arora. I'm Vice President of Customer Experience Centers in Cisco. I've been in Cisco for almost 23 plus years, and like everyone here, have 30 plus of year industry experience. One of the unique things about my career is that I started with customer support in Wipro. Probably some of us can relate to it. About, I don't know how many of you have ever seen a 5.5 quarter-inch floppy drive, 3.5 floppy drive, SCSI drive. I've used them all. Those were the days we used to use those to install software in our customer networks, to being part of test organization, leading development organization, building products from an engineering for India, building products for India consumption, to moving out of engineering into customer experience, doing deployment of large 5G networks, 4G networks like Airtel, Reliance Jio, to being part of a support organization. It's been an amazing variety of stuff that I've done within the tech industry. A little trivia about me is that if anyone wants to think we are only techies, we are don't find time for anything. I'm a big into fitness. I love working out 6 days a week. And I also have a lot of fun on the weekends. I party hard, I work hard, I party hard, so you can have it all as well. That's about me.
Lovely. Thank you so much, Pallavi. Sharbani?
Hi, everyone. A very, very warm welcome to all of you. And I'm happy to be here today. I'm Sharbani. I'm from Genpact. I manage strategy and engagement for both our CSR and DE&I programs. I've been a long timer with Genpact, 19 years with the organization. I've grown here. And since the last almost more than 10 years, I've been supporting DE&I and CSR. So it's been a wonderful journey. And I sometimes think that I really have the best job in the world, because this is a cause that I passionately believe on. And to get to work on that cause and get paid, I think that is like that's like the best thing that can ever happen to somebody like me. So that's a bit about me. In terms of trivia around me, I'm also a plant mom. So, I have a garden, I use my own hands, and all my Saturdays and Sundays are spent looking after my small plants and big plants and whatever plants that I have. And that's also, again, triggered another interest in learning more about the flora and fauna around us. So I do some studies in my spare time to figure out what are the native trees, what are the native plants, and it's an interesting I find it very, very interesting, and I think that it's also a big stress buster for me.
Thank you, Sharbani. Sudha?
Hey, good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure to be on this forum, and thank you, Secretary, for the warm welcome. I have been in Dell for the past 15 years, have 3 decades of experience in the Indian IT industry. I manage a software group within the infrastructure solutions group at Dell, working on service storage networking. An interesting trivia about me, which not many know, is I'm a big fan of heavy metal hard rock music. Nobody associates that with me, so that's something that I do. I listen to a lot of music and probably watching Iraq. That's it.
Thank you so much, Sudha. So it's time for us to move on and know about the stories that we have just set as a pretext for the whole concept, the whole idea that we are here, that have all of you present here on the panel with me. When we look at the industry, right, we've seen a lot of changes, and when we talk about those change, right, what is that one change you as women leaders have observed or brought in the past few years when it comes to diversity and inclusion? I would want to know. So, Lakuma, let's begin with you.
Sure, Sukriti. I think you've asked us for one change we observed and one change that we were a part of. So let me start with the first. One change I observed. I think there's several changes, but I'm going to pick one. Maybe my career story, right? I started 18 years ago. I was campus recruited into an Indian company. There were about 5% women that got selected from my engineering school. Now, well, you can imagine how the scenario would have been, and to my luck, a few of them did not join. Now, we were a handful in a large group of male colleagues. It was not easy, but we found our friends that stayed as our support through the training. As we got into our projects, they stayed as our pure tech geeks who we learned with and grew with. And these friends were not gender-based, right? They were the support system that came from all groups. Today, actually, probably since the last several years, it's very different. When I go to campus recruiting, at least the ones that I lead, we end up with a class of at least an average of 50% or more female tech students that get selected. Sometimes it goes as high as 90%. And the truth is, it's not artificially done, the 50% or the 90%. It's not specifically selected to get to that number. It has just been the outcome of the same process, the old process that was there, and the process did not change. Maybe there are several reasons to that, and I believe our society itself has embraced the fact to send more women to tech school. Maybe girls, I have to say, girls to tech school. More women are opting for tech schools, and it does not stop there. I think even after they finish their tech school, in many organizations, including Deloitte, conversations about diversity, equity, and inclusion are at the forefront and not as an afterthought. And then there are these forums that encourage, the forum that we all are talking in, that encourage all of us to speak, and there is, they encourage us to listen. Definitely a treasure trove to learn from. Now, the second part of your question was about the change we brought in the last few years. Now, I would say we here, not I, because each of us can work within a sphere of influence, but it takes a mesh to make the change happen, and it is never one person, the whole butterfly effect, as they call it. Now, I spoke about how we recruit large numbers, but from diversity and inclusion, it is also important to focus on making sure that the professional feels valued for what they bring. Now, if I ask myself, would I go to work if I don't feel valued? The answer is a simple, plain no. No matter the pay, no matter the love of tech, no matter the compensation, the answer would be no. I would not. I would love to work where I feel valued, and I'm sure all of you would echo this. It is the nature of every human being, right? No boundaries, no geographies, no shores, gender, or preferences. Each of us want to be valued, and I believe that is the change that several organizations and the tech industry has been driving, and we continue to. And I'll take pride in saying that I'm a part of an organization where we've always made sure that we create an environment where people can do their best of the work, and where they do, they know that their needs can be met, because we are cognizant of the fact that without inclusion, the power of diversity remains untapped. Now, last thing I'd probably share is a bit of facts, and as I was preparing for the panel, I was looking at a study by Deloitte. We call it Deloitte Insights. It showed that gender diverse teams have the power to boost your business performance by 31%. Obviously, right, that translates basically saying that gender diverse teams have smarter teams, Smarter teams tend to make better decisions because they come with better problem solving capabilities. And it's a no-brainer that having seen the data-driven proofs that diverse teams create better businesses irrespective. And the change had been imperative for us, and hence, we saw it, and it's ongoing. And probably there is no end to the change, but there's definitely different curves that the change itself takes.
Definitely. Thank you, Lakuma. I will second what you've just mentioned. We've seen change. All of us have seen change. We've been a part of it. Geetha, I would like you to add something here.
I think the changes that I've seen coming across from the 3 decades, and more specifically, I would say from 2006, mainly because I entered this whole diversity and inclusion space at that point. One thing I've noticed is there is a lot more awareness, right? We do talk of terms like conscious or unconscious biases. We talk about stereotypical behavior. We are more aware that if all things are equal, we take some underrepresented community to be part of our recruitment. So there is a lot of strides in that area, and actually I was really surprised. I was meeting the managing director of London and Partners recently, and she said, how much study goes into a lot of like narrow niche areas so that it can really change the way we look at gender. There's this lady who did a PhD in the US where she studied the pitches made by all women and men across different venture capitalists, everything that's in public space. She analyzed what questions were given to them, whether they were open questions, closed questions, what are the type of questions, and of course she's profited by coming up with a whole workshop around it. But it's just that she found that there was a difference between the venture capital asking to the female or those who identify as female a question, or what is given to a male. The questions are different. The questions usually that are given to the men are open questions, while the women get closed questions. You have no opportunity to expand more. So, and that's, I think, the change that has really come, is that people are willing, they're seeing it, and they're willing to explore it further. And some of the things that Lakuma said, that there's a lot of things that we've done. I mean, I've dedicated my life to this cause at this point. I'm an entrepreneur only in this space. And I think technology affects everybody's lives. And in a way, if women are not part of that process, we are doing, I think, the country an injustice by not being part of it. So I'm striving hard. There are people on this call that I work with who are helping also to think of what next for women in tech. What should we do to really, change the organizations, change the community, and change the whole landscape?
Thank you, Geetha. I think you've brought in some very, very contemporary and relevant examples to talk about the change. Thank you. Arundathi?
Yeah, so lot has changed in terms of, there is roles that are designated for, diversity. And there is a lot of, direction around making sure that we have enough number comas, but there is also things that have not changed. One thing which has not changed much is women in leadership roles. I think we are losing people somewhere in between. We have, as Lakuma said, like when we go to colleges, we go to the campuses, we see a huge number of women, and they are doing well. If you look at all our academic results, girls are doing extremely well. So there is no dearth for talent per se, right? And so something is happening between, the join, and after some time people are leaving, right? They are not taking, when compared to the number of women we have in the workforce as opposed to what we have in leadership roles, I feel that it can change much more, right? Even for me, for many times and for many years and with many leaders, I was the one and only woman in the whole staff of my boss, right? So I feel that should change. In fact, I would have wanted some company. So it has lots has changed, but things have still not changed in terms of leadership roles. I think we need to focus more on that as well. And adding to the data that Lakuma talked about, it is 31% increase. So I would say a study has shown that any company board which has women in it is 80% more successful than a board without women. So it is, all the data is showing it, because the different in thought process, different in views, different in strategies that you bring into the table, the ideas bring into the table, it's really helping, right? So so the data shows there are a lot of women now studying, coming out of campuses. That is there. I think we have to slowly mentor them and bring them up to the leadership roles. So what I have done specifically in the sphere of influence, I've become a professional certified coach, by the way, because I realized that coaching is I'm able to create a lot of transformational stories when I coach as opposed to mentoring. So, and I coach a lot of women. In fact, I volunteer to coach any woman who comes and tells me she wants some help. I volunteer to coach. So I have been a coach, and we have created these women forum groups to network and make people, have a sense of belongingness, share. So we have done that, and monthly meets to make sure that there is somebody listening to the issues and all that. So there are a lot of initiatives around creating networking opportunities and all that we have done. Personally, I coach a lot of women.
Thank you, Arundathi, for that. Pallavi?
Hi, and just to add on to everything, one of the things I'll give is a slightly different perspective, right? From the time, like some of us have been in this industry for 30 years. Is like what Geetha said, there's a lot more awareness, but what is also important is it's not about just IT industry being aware, but it's a lot of help and support from government agencies around this, right? Look at the kind of labor laws that have changed over the last few years, right? From making sure that the maternity leave has increased from 8 weeks, 12 weeks to 6 months now. Maybe enabling all the young mother, because that's where the drop off. Arundathi talked about how while we get a huge number of people from college, they start falling off. And most of the people who drop out of the workforce are right around the time when they get married, they have kids, especially when they had no role models. And they're like, they keep wondering, how will I be able to do this motherhood as well as working? I think that right at that spot is where there's a lot of help that is coming through by a lot of change in labor laws, and we need to recognize the government for that. One is by increasing the maternity leave period so that people take sufficient time to be with their kids before they come back, they feel a lot more comfortable. Second is the mandate for any organization that has more than 100 employees to have like a daycare center. Now that is being mandated by government, which means that for nuclear families, when they are there and everyone worries, okay, I have to go back to work, but now what do I do with my baby? Who will take care of my baby, right? Making sure of that. A lot of safety and security for women employees at workplace in the form of, if you're working late, you need to have an escort, they have to give you a car to go back with. Plus also making sure that you can't be the last person in the taxi. There is a posh team set up for any sexual harassment. So the amount of benefits and labor changes that the government is bringing in is actually very commendable, because in fact, I haven't seen some of these in the most advanced countries, be it Americas or Europe. I haven't seen some of these things being played out there. I personally feel very, very proud to be in India, where I feel like we are leading the pack. And that's also one of the reasons you will see the highest diversity for women is actually in India compared to any other country or any other part of the world. And even if you go to Americas or Europe, if you go to the tech, most of the women that you see who are are either from Asia and also from India, right? I think this is something that we all need to be cognizant of and definitely make use of it, right? So that's the one thing that I have observed as a very, very positive thing that's working for all of us. From my own perspective, again, building on what Arundathi said is, okay, how do we help all these women who are in the middle part of their career? How do we uplift them? Because a lot of people feel that they're hitting a glass ceiling after some time. And what Arundathi you're doing is a fantastic job. A lot of us are also mentoring, we are sponsoring employees, everything, right? But I think the whole concept of having a lot of role models in the work, right? The role model starts with each one of us, right? If each of us are leaders within our own next level, how many women employees are in our next level, right? So consciously, I'm trying to push that I need to have a minimum of one woman reporting to me, if not more, right? Consciously making sure that and every leader in my organization needs to have at least one woman in their leadership team, if not more. And I want to see them being part of the succession planning for that leader. And how do we make sure that each of them have sponsors, have mentors, we have a career path for them. Someone is all the time watching for them, looking out for them in the organization. And so what I ask is every time we open a new hiring position, we cannot close that position without having at least interviewed one woman. And then all our interview panels, if there is a woman in the as a candidate, we need to make sure there are at least one woman in the interview panel, and that one woman will watch out to make sure that there is no bias in the selection, and like what Geetha said about asking the right questions, being open-minded about it, and most importantly, you know, a lot of women, especially when you're mentoring and coaching, one of the things to watch for is that a lot of women sometimes don't trust themselves to have all the skills. They want to be 100% prepared before they put up their hand to do something, right? And all of us as women and leaders, we need to nudge them. We should say, hey, don't worry if you don't know the skills. You will learn it on the job. It's okay. Take the risk. Go take a step forward, right? And we are here to help you and support. You are not going to fail, right? I think all of us should be nudging people to go on, take that step when they're not very sure of themselves. I think these are some of the things that I practically, I consciously practice in my everyday work.
Thank you, Pallavi. Sharbani?
Thank you. So I think, you know, all of you have covered most of the points that are really relevant and the changes that have happened. I just wanted to, and I know that Sukriti suggested that we have to talk about one thing. I think the one thing that I have been doing, or Genpact has been doing very consistently, is that today's fact is that it's a volatile world, and learning and development is very important. Upskilling, reskilling almost becomes a part of the game through which you will stay relevant. And as women, you know, sometimes we don't find the time to invest in ourselves. So just borrowing from Lakuma, saying inclusion is most important, and there's no way we can get any value out of diversity if we don't have an inclusive culture. I think what we've done is that we've tried to create an inclusive culture where everybody feels valued, but at the same time have had those safe conversations to say that in order to grow, in order to, and one, you know, give them the faith and the belief that they can do it, and then give them the means to do it, which is through reskilling and upskilling. And then there are these learning and development programs that have been built, and I've been a part of that building of that program with external partners, etc., where we've told all are eligible women to apply. There are no filters, so you don't have to take an approval from an HR or a supervisor, and you don't have to have a specific rating, etc., in order to apply. All you have to do is to believe in yourself and apply for the program, go through the learning and development journey consistently, deliver on those 3 parameters. And if you are in the top quartile of the people who come out of the program and graduate, we will place you in accelerated career roadmaps. So that's something that we've done very consciously for plugging in that leaky pipeline that Arundathi, you were talking about. But that's just one more initiative in addition to all that Pallavi, you, Geetha, and Lakuma mentioned. Another interesting thing that I want to mention, because it's been on top of my mind, is that recently we've seen a lot of focus on ESG, and the diversity, equity, and inclusion is a part of the ESG framework. So that has actually brought in a lot of visibility towards how is a company doing, or what are the performance parameters, what are some of the key achievements. And I think that additional visibility is actually amping up accountability for organizations. And previously, while it might have been a good thing to do, now it's a must do. And if it's a must do, then we put all our effort, all our focus, all our funds behind doing something which is absolutely right. And I think that's where the accountability has helped us, that we together are creating a workplace where everybody feels valued and they feel that they belong, and hence the power of inclusion actually ramping up the diversity scores for the company.
Thank you, Sharbani. Sudha?
Yeah, very good insights. We've come a long way from considering women as just as occupational hazards to diversity being the business imperative, being the talent imperative. So that's a huge, huge improvement in the 3 years I've seen. And focus on DE&I is very good. The one thing that I would add is, think about it, 15 years ago, 20 years ago, you take a break, it's a burden. It's very, very difficult in India to come back to the mainstream or come back to a career. Today it is not so. There are a number of opportunities companies are doing, and out of their way to provide opportunities for women to restart their career. Right? So career is dedicated, how shall I say, agencies which help us create women with. One of the things that I personally have been involved is a bootstrap program in Dell, where we actually get women who've taken a career to come in as interns or contractors for a year, get trained on the job. Actually, they do the work, right? All we need is like work in a software career sometime in before the day. And then they come work. That 1 year helps them launch a game, build a resume, it's relevant experience, and then if there is an opportunity to bring them, we give them, we give them the experience certificate, which helps them launch their career as well. That's one. The second is companies are going out of their way to go on unconscious bias. There are, I think, Sharbani and some of you mentioned the learning and development. They are using various trainings to make ourselves aware of this unconscious bias. One of the things that I worked personally, I engaged a theater company called Kannan to come and connect some of the scenarios, the bias scenarios which women encounter. So we invited everyone in the organization to come and listen. Look at what happens. So it was almost everyone could relate to those kind of steps, right? A promotion conversation, an interview for a woman, late night conversation, taking a break kind of conversation. So we wrote those steps, Kannan enacted them. Had a huge impact because when I do it, women say, hey, I have gone through this before. So I thought that was a very effective one, really raised the level and moved the level for himself and moved the effort on addressing some of them. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you, Sudha. So after so many interesting observations and changes that all of you have spoken about, there are things that I individually want to know from each one of you. So to start with, Geetha, being the founder and CEO of your company, how easy or difficult, was it to lead your company as a woman when you started? And what were the changes? What were the changes you looked at when you started your career again?
It's a very, very fantastic question because it's got layers of complexity. But working, you would think that you're working in the space of diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging, since you have to include the whole number of alphabets out there, because each one has a depth to it and has a different meaning, and it's very essential for you to be successful in everything. Thinking that you're going to be in that space and with a specific focus on gender diversity, one would think that I would interact only with women. But I can tell you that I think as a founder now, I'm very surprised that most of the decision makers at, like Arundhathi's example was saying there are not enough women leaders up there. Barring probably a Pallavi and a Sudha that I interact with, a lot of them are men. And so you are not only selling the story and the need for it, but you have to sell much more, because some of them are like, what are you saying? Is truly something like this out there? Do women feel that they don't belong? It's that, right? So you're changing, you'll have to change the script to, and we should have something like 101 for all these people, but it's just that the interaction then has, I lead a women only team. So, I have the pleasure of working only with women, but the whole concept of the customer base being much broader than just being what you're going to address is one of the challenges that I've seen. And if you look at it from the fact that, what we're trying to achieve, because we're trying to achieve a story for India. Like Pallavi was saying that there are so many good things that have happened in India. We are trying to achieve that story, because I do apologies to others on this committee, but we don't have enough data for India itself. So we've done a research study on 120 companies saying, what do they feel about diversity and inclusion? What does India Inc. really think? And it's kind of surprising because 52% of them don't think. It's business as usual. Inclusion, it'll all happen. It'll all happen. I don't know how that happens, but it'll happen. It's not even a checklist item, right? At least with the checklist item, I have hope you will sponsor something that I'm running, but it's not even that. So it's 52% don't even think about it. It's business as usual. They say, of course, in the largest of their hearts, that if everybody is hired on merit, right? But we are talking of many, many years of women not being there in the workforce. So there has to be a little bit, that's why we have these great women on this panel who are coaches, mentors, sponsors, because you need that little, somebody has to put you over that speed breaker. Not all of us can go over it, right? We scrape the belly of our car when we go over it. So we are trying to look at ways and means that we can support women to go over that speed breaker and not just say that, oh, it's a level playing field and then we'll hire women. So lovely initiatives by most organizations saying that they have to have at least one women very qualified women candidate or some underrepresented community. And I think that's what we're encouraging most through our research, saying, see it from that perspective, because I know there are societal factors across the world, but in India, we have not only the individual with all the lovely things an individual in India has in terms of the women, in terms of imposter syndrome, I don't have ambition until I'm 100% sure I can't apply for a job, all those wonderful things already the women has. On top of that, there is a layer of a family, and that family goes ahead to say, hello, I don't think you should be doing this. I don't think you should be working late. I don't think you should go to an office. So they have their opinions. And then we have the organization, right, who also bring in their kinds of unconscious and conscious bias towards women in the workplace. And of course, we have society. And you must remember that all your colleagues, your team members, or even your leaders, if they are men, they're not going to dust the whatever they learned so-called mother's knee and come and say, listen, I'm going to change. When I work, I just have to enter the workplace and I'm a different person. It doesn't work that way, right? So it's a lot of things that we are working on in terms of an individual, in terms of the organization, trying to change your family, trying to change the way society thinks. And it's nice in a way because there's a huge opportunity for my organization to exist, but it saddens in a way because we do have, like the NASSCOM data shows, about 36% is women, but all of them are in that bottom pyramid. And if we have to push them up, right? Belong did a survey a long time ago, but I think it's still relevant, where they say 29% of women join the workforce. 12 years later, only 7% of them remain. And I think that leaking pipeline is our biggest problem today. And I would echo what Arundathi said, that if we can address the leaking pipeline, the country itself will benefit, leave alone organizations.
Very well comprehended, Geetha. Thank you so much. I think you've brought in some very important aspects of, the challenges we face and how even, the roots, the core, how we, we've been grown in our personal lives also matters, professionally when it comes across giving equal opportunities. So thank you so much for that. Sudha, I would like to move to you. How do you think the role of women in tech has evolved over the years? All of us sitting here on the panel have so much of experience, but I would like to know from you that, when you started your career, how do you think it has evolved? What has changed? Negative, positive, how would you like to, bring it a balance here?
Well, good question, right? It's interesting you're talking about it, considering that the very first programmer in the world was a woman. I love this. The first compiler was written by a woman, Packard, and today we are sitting in London hiring enough women in deep tech roles, right? So the evolution that I've seen, I think it is during the driver also. So a few years, a couple of decades ago, I wasn't even aware that I'm a woman trying to create. We were just engineers, techies. I feel that I feel like a woman professional only for the past 10, 15 years with companies focusing a lot on diversity and that sort of thing, right? What has changed? More ladies at entry level, especially in India. So there is abundance of talent at entry level. They come with definite rules of what areas they want to work on. They have, at least for a short term, a career mapped out in my mind. I want to work on this, not this. I want to do this kind of things, etc. They have clear plans. Okay, I will do my masters and probably an MBA or even in data science or even whatever core technology I'm working on. That's good. I don't think I had any clue of what I'm doing when I started. Companies, the ecosystem is much better today. There are special drivers, Pallavi also mentioned, to recruit government interview panels. There is a conscious look, at least in some of our companies, on salary equity and promotion equity. So, are you doing equitable? Are you performers or after less, paid less, those things are very judged. In terms of roles, right, women have also evolved with the software industry. I will take Indian perspective. First, we started with setting up business, sustaining activities, and then development, etc. More or less a similar trajectory. Earlier, there used to be a brand or label on women saying, hey, please suit these kind of jobs. Non-system engineering, application development, software testing, where they can perceive the software, which is definitely varying. But today, you find women doing a lot more than what originally they thought they should do. The lines are blurring. Women are acquiring depth, growing in tech roles. We have distinguished engineers, women in health, and the technical staff all across. They're filing patents, presenting industry trainings. I think we lead on all the initiatives. They're much more confident, so that's a huge change. There are some roles which women would not be able to, like product management, security technologies, kind of thing. I see women getting into that. There are still some bastions to reach. Like I don't see many women IT administrators or database administrators, but I think it's only a matter of time before we get there, right? Women are less apologetic and guilty today of what happens naturally to them, like say maternity, taking time off for childcare. They're in fact asking, opening up and saying, hey, I need support. Do you have part-time opportunity? Do you have flexible opportunity? Do you have daycare support? So they're asking for it, which is very good. Then networking, a big change that I've seen. There are what I agree. Bucket, we lost a very middle order. I used to have a lot more women colleagues once upon a time today. There are some senior women, there are a lot of junior women, the middle order is pretty weak. But then there are networking opportunities. Women themselves are taking interest in mentoring, coaching, like Pallavi said, building the next levels. So the new engineers are taking a lot more support, not just from the organization, but other women. There are groups among women who get together, like I think in the US it is called sisters, that's why it's TUIs, where we have things like sheet drive, etc. And there is group discussions, group mentoring, etc. That's very important to realize that. And so women do have role models, not in large numbers, but they do, right? Another thing that is important is I talked about restarting careers. It is not just the opportunity, but women are also willing to look at that. It's not a that's the change. There are, I think, cost committees, internal influence committee. That is also an important aspect for women to feel safe, apart from transportation and other benefits. Industry forums, not just internal networking forums like these, areas, GSI, women in technology, women in code, etc. forums, different companies are becoming very important. The other thing that has evolved, right, we keep talking about women only in terms of diversity. When we talk about it, I call it intersectional diversity. In the US, it is African women, American women, South Asian. So similarly, now there's a lot more awareness of how do we tap into the talent of persons with disabilities? How do we get them into the workforce, LGBTQ and across the organization? And I bring that connection. I think women who consider themselves a minority diversity also are in the forefront and supporting some of these kind of initiatives because they understand what it takes to overcome some of the adversities that we have and come forward. I think that women are getting a lot more interested in these kind of intersectional diversities, cross diversities, etc. A lot of changes, a lot of good ones. Yes, there are flip sides, like we still have a little bit of coming the reach a lot, but I feel very positive for the future of women in the industry.
Thank you, Sudha. In the interest of time, I would like to move to Arundathi now. So bringing women in tech back to work after a career break is something that companies have been keenly working on, and we've often speaking about it. According to you, how would you rate the success of such initiatives so far?
So from the success perspective, we are not there much, I would say, to be honest. We are not at all there much. But individuals, I have had a couple of friends whom I used to interact for different reasons. And, they were doing something else, but they are not, now they are back to work. So I presume that some of the cases it has worked, right? So they are back to work after a gap. So and that makes me feel that it is working, but not to the level. There are still a whole bunch of people that I meet with, and given an opportunity, they would like to get back to work, right? So how do we, now that is a problem, that it has not been as successful as what it should be to get the women back to work after a gap, right? Whether they went to take care of the family, marriage, or whatever, right? Now, what are the things? One is, I think there are 3 reasons I would say, and we can attack these 3 reasons, then we will be successful. One is with respect to the cultural aspect of it. Forget about women taking a break. Anybody, if a guy comes and tells, Arundathi, I went into movie making to see how I do, and then after 5 years he comes back, how many of us would honestly take that person back to work, right? A lot would have changed, and that person might not even be considered, potentially for a job opening that we have. So culturally, we're very competitive. We do not take people taking a break as a very positive thing, right? We have to change our thinking in terms of having a gap is very normal, it's okay, and we can, that is unconscious bias. I think we are likely to have because of going, always on the move, always wanting to do something big and better, and all that kind of a culture, very competitive culture. Second thing is, how many of these messages is actually reaching the people that it is supposed to reach, right? The people who are on a break, how do we know, and how do we go and attract them? Is the messages reaching the right people or not? I think that itself is a big doubt for me, right? How are we going to go and reach out to these? You have an audience that you want to reach out to. How do you know that your open positions are reaching out to them? That is second thing. The third thing is the skill development, because in technology, things change very fast, right? If people have taken a 5 to 7 years break of, bringing up 2 children or taking care of an elderly person, they've almost taken a 5 to 7 year of break. How do we make sure that they're not uncomfortable coming back to work, telling that I am all fully set and I know what I've got to do in my job? So how do we skill them up so that people can come back confidently, right? If those 3 can be adjusted culturally, in terms of looking at the gap, not in a negative way, and getting these messages to the right audience, whom we are trying to get them back to work, and upskilling in terms of where they were and filling those gaps, this will help. Yeah, that's what my thoughts are.
Thank you, Arundathi. I think you've very well enlisted the aspects, the areas that we need to really improve upon. Success rate is, I think, very subjective that we may call off. But what you've actually pointed out is very critical. Also, when we talk of DE&I, when we talk of gender gap, we have had a mindset of only balancing it out between the men and the women, and we just tend to build a contrast between the two. But now DE&I is completely different. Now we have more inclusivity. Now we have more, people who are part of it and, who needs our attention precisely. So we have to holistically work for all of them. And I think men or women, LGBTQ, people with disability, no matter who it is, when you have to have a career break and you need to come back, we have to treat everyone the same. Right? So that mindset is very important, as you spoke. Thank you so much for that. I will now move to Pallavi. Pallavi, how can men, or let's just say as colleagues, or maybe anyone in their privileged positions, become better allies to women, LGBTQ, people with disability, coming back to work after a career?
I think men have to become role models, right? Just like we are saying women are role models. How many men role models are there that they model this not just in office but as well as in personal life, right? But because like Geetha said, women need on both sides. They need help at home so that someone else is able to carry their weight equivalently, and then there are people in the office who are looking out for them and helping them in that. I think we need, just like women role models, we need a lot more men role models. In fact, the next time you do a session like this, Sukriti, I think you should be calling a lot of the men into this forum and have them talk about how are they supporting women personally in their lives as well as professionally in the career, what they are doing to help out, because men will only look up to other men, right? And to say that, oh, so these people are doing, and hey, I have more models. So we need to create more role models of men who are actually able to do it. They have to show it. They can talk a lot, but if it's not there, if amongst their direct report they don't have women reporting to them, if their wives are not working and having a successful career, then they are not the right set of role models as well, right? I think we need to set a high bar and make sure that this is what we mean by men being inclusive, of being able to do role modeling. That's what I would ask for.
Thank you, Pallavi. Thank you so much. Moving on to you, Sharbani. What are some of the strategies? You are the one who actually does it, and you're somebody who works in the core for the DE&I. What are some of the strategies to retain women in tech?
Yeah, so I'll build on what Arundathi said. I think I'm going back over and over again to learning and development because that's something that I believe in, and that's something which has been a core of Genpact's values and the way we have built up our employee base and the way we retain our employees. And also, post facto, if you look at it, skills are changing very fast. So I talked about upskilling. The way we do it is one of the things that we do is through a platform called Genome. It's like a learning marketplace. Everybody has access to it, and it's a pull-based learning, modules which are placed there, very short, bite-sized, available across all devices. And these are learning roadmaps that have been created consistently for multiple roles that exist in the company. And it's our job to then push everybody to go and upskill themselves based on whatever they would like to learn about. And believe me, that approach has worked. We have a huge number of people going and consuming that content. And it's not only content. So once you've completed a certain part of the journey, there are interactions that are happening, and we call it Guru Connects. So we'll have people, who are experts in that field interact with these learners to understand whether they have any questions, whether there are any gaps. And then there are mini projects also which are given out, like solidify tasks, through which they actually solidify their learning. Now, our job has been to push as many women as possible to all those platforms, right? And it's not women, it's men and women agnostic, but I'm bringing up the topic of women here is because we want to retain them. One of the reasons why people quit is because they feel that they've done enough, they are not getting new opportunities, they don't know where to go and what to do next. I think through learning and development, that's something that we are taking care of, because another tool that exists and that another process that we follow is called talent match. So once people have upskilled themselves, their profiles actually get updated with that information that they have been skilled in A, B, C, D, E skills. And then talent match actually gives them an opportunity to apply for roles as pertaining to those skills which might be existing currently or in the future. So it's almost like creating your own pathway within the company to ensure that you remain relevant, you are doing a job that you would like to do, and it relates to whatever you've learned and where you want to go in your life. So that's one part of it. The second part that I want to call out here is about programs, leadership development programs that we've built out. So we have a program called the Women's Leadership Program. It is available for all our assistant vice presidents. Again, the nomination is just self-nomination. So raise your hand and commit for a 15-month long arduous learning journey. And then once they sign up, there are we actually have partnered with Harvard last year. This year we are partnering with Conferry. It's a very structured learning path through which we are, which actually focuses on building leadership capabilities, giving global exposure, and then help and addressing all kind of questions, etc., that women might have, and preparing them to be the next set of future leaders. And like I said before, so the top performance participants actually get accelerated career paths. So that's another thing that we are doing. And then there are other learning and development programs which are existing in the company. And as a custodian of the DEI team, what we do is to ensure that all our women are applying for these trainings. And before they apply, we kind of do webinars to bring experts in from who are running those programs to say how much of effort is needed, because we want women to make an informed decision. Most of the time we are afraid that this is something we can't do because it will, I mean, I'm looking after my house, I'm looking after my child, I'm looking after work, and over and above that I have to qualify. It's not my cup of tea. So basically demystifying all of it to say that it is something which you can do. Also bringing in role models who've done this to say that if so-and-so has done it and they talk about their journey, which kind of convinces people to apply, sign up, and then succeed through those programs. So that's a bit about L&D. I'll also touch upon a bit on the company culture. So what we are trying to do, and which all of us are trying to do, is to build an inclusive culture, which means that we have affinity groups where women are getting together to talk about each other's problems, to talk about common, build out common solutions, ask questions. These are safe spaces which kind of give them an opportunity to get together and open up their thoughts and feelings. And we are also getting in external experts, client leaders, role models to come and talk to them. So that's something that we keep doing pretty regularly. And then there is a very strong sponsorship program called Pay It Forward, which is like a mix and match of sponsorship as well as mentorship. And what we're trying to do here is what Arundathi, you actually mentioned, that it's like having somebody who's a senior leader in the company having a stake in your career. So today I might think of quitting because I feel overwhelmed. I'm not able to manage, but I don't have anybody who I can go and talk to. So the easiest method I take is to say that I can't do this, and I quit. But if I have somebody like Arundathi in my life, I will just take 5 minutes to go and talk to her and tell her that I'm going through this, and her learnings will help me get a new way out, or maybe help me see things in a different light. And maybe her influence is going to ensure that somebody out there in my team is now able to understand my challenges a little better and help support me a little better while I am going through this kind of a rigmarole in my life. So the Pay It Forward program actually is very close again to my heart, because I created that along with some of my other team members. We actually had 32 members in 2013, and now that network has expanded to more than 3,000 sponsor and protege pairs within the company. And the best part is that we call the program to be a one-year program, but we see that these relationships have actually existed even after the one-year period. I mean, these people actually form, and I'm one of them. I also have a mentor. It's like a relationship for life, and it doesn't matter whether it's a work issue or a life issue or a child issue. It doesn't matter at all. All you actually kind of have that lifeline number where you call up and say, hey, I'm in trouble, or I am having this question, can you help me? And that experience and expertise really, really helps out. So these are some of the key things that we have. But apart from that, we also have focused a lot on mental and physical well-being, because that is something that we saw came up as a huge topic during the pandemic, and we saw our women struggling. And the way we found this out is because we also have tools and as well as check-ins which happen with employees at regular intervals to ask them, what is it that you're feeling, what is it that you're going through, and how can we help? And that's when well-being became a huge topic. And what we've done is to provide free membership to Headspace, which is a mindfulness app. And apart from that, we are also doing webinars with experts who talk about resilience, who talk about well-being practices, and even yoga sessions, and even fun stuff like Zumba. So it's just the fact that Genpact is there, or you have a supportive ecosystem around you. No matter what you're going through, we will try and help you with the best possible in the best possible way we can. And these are some of the programs that I thought I could mention here, because the rest I think all of you have anyways mentioned.
Thank you, Sharbani. I think you've covered almost everything that can be incorporated and is a very critical angle to retain women in tech. Lakuma, I will now move to you. So your story is very interesting, and I would want you to share yours with our audience today. That how do you think one woman in tech can create their own opportunities in the tech domain by sharing your story, which is yet another example, because all of us have shared our stories here and talked of things that we have had experienced in our careers professionally. So let's go ahead.
Sure, Sukriti. Nan, thank you. There's several things that I had done with my experience in terms of creating opportunities, and to create a sustained career. And the reason I say sustained is not an awesome career or a successful career, because it's important when we think long term, when we think career, that it's a sustained career, and I believe sustain is the right word. But let me share a few examples, probably a couple, right? So the first one, I believe it's not just about creating opportunities, it's also about finding them, small or big, because opportunities don't come in gift packets, right? They're not very well laced and knitted and things like that. So for instance, when I joined Deloitte about 12 years ago, I was new. Of course, there were several that were new to me too. And there was an opportunity a manager provided me with, right? It was not my core area. Back then I was a Java architect and I joined as a senior consultant. It was an e-commerce package that probably nobody ever heard the name of, but I took it. I learned it on the job, learned how it worked, eventually became the top developer in the team, led the team, became a core design architect, and that project gave me the story to make a manager. It helped me make my marks in ways that I did not imagine, just because I took the opportunity and I did my best. So it's about finding what those opportunities are, that you create opportunities for yourself in a way. The second one that I can probably share is to add your mark, and add your mark to every work you do. Again, right, it could be a piece of code, it could be an email, it could be a presentation, a Word document, even being in this panel today. Adding your own mark, actually, make it the best that you could ever give. For example, the code that I'd written 8 years ago, I still get pings today. I don't know how many of them curse me, but I do get pings and text today about how cool the code was. I mean, that just makes my day. Sometimes a slide that I created comes back to me saying, hey, look at this. This is a great slide that speaks about the solution. It feels good. Of course, beyond making you feel good, what it also does is it starts building you up as a brand, right? Your value proposition, and people would remember you. There's a recall value. They would call you for certain things, and that's what I believe creating opportunities is also all about. Now, third one, and what Arundathi already mentioned, Sharbani already mentioned, right? Not just when you take a break, maybe, but even if you don't, investing in learning and investing in yourself is very important, because if you do not, nobody else would. I mean, look at the times when probably I started, technology stayed for at least a few years. But in the times now, technology is morphing from core coding to platforms that drive faster time to market, config-based coding, low code, and now there are even no-code platforms evolving. And there is technology disruptions and drivers that have, changed the market. There is this digital cloud, data analytics, artificial intelligence, so much more. I think it's time you learn and prioritize to stay in touch. And again, right, it's about playing smart. Now, you can't be an expert in cloud, you can't be an expert in artificial intelligence, but it's about how do you play? How much of breadth is enough? How much of depth is enough? That's where each of us have to play smart. And of course, each of us know the answer to that, and invest time in yourselves. Even today, I learn from books, but it's not always that books teach us, right? People, teams, and everyone has something to teach us in the area of their work. And I think it's just about having a conversation with them and listening to them, and that also is an opportunity to learn. The last and the fourth one, and this is that lifeline that you were talking about, Sharbani, right? I learned this from my mentor, who has been my coach for everything, till date. And what they told me was, don't shy away from talking about your success, strengths, accolades received, and even the learnings too, right? Self-branding is very different from blowing your own trumpet. So when you talk about your accolades, do it for branding yourself. It should be looked upon as a mode for gaining opportunities. So these are a couple of things that I thought, but I'll conclude by saying something. And I wanted to say it since when Arundathi mentioned that it's not just enough to recruit women, it's about, sustaining them when they get to that phase of pivotal moments in their life. And I had one, right? So when I was working, I got recruited, I worked, I went to the US, I had my children, and I had to come back to India because it was my choice. I came back to India and my spouse supported me. That's when I joined Deloitte, but I had a 2 years break before I joined Deloitte. And of course, there was a lot of that self-doubt and all of those before the layers come that Arundathi was mentioning about, whether I could come back to work, but I did, and I'm successful. But the reason I bring that up is the opportunities that were, not formal before, though organizations, welcomed us. Deloitte welcomed me very well. There are formal opportunities today. We call it second innings at Deloitte, where people who want to come back. And again, I know Arundathi, I'm quoting you a lot, but to her point, right? What about a man who wants to go and do probably a film video or try his luck elsewhere? So second innings is for both, but there are formal programs today. And according to Deloitte's estimates, women share approximately 6.9% globally. It has increased by 6.9% from 2019 to 2022, while the share in technical roles itself has gone up by 11.5%-ish, right? So that's a fast growth. And the leadership roles in the women there, roughly by the end of 2022, there's an estimate that it's going to be 1 in 4 leadership positions in the global technology firms. So I think that's like 4 percentage points or so more than 2019. I know I'm throwing a lot of data, but what I wanted to say here is, and also what all of us have been talking about, Geetha, Arundathi, Pallavi, Sharbani, Sudha, and I, and Sukriti, you've been acknowledging it too, right? That opportunities are great. I think it's time for each of us, each of you, if you're listening to this, to create your own space and your own opportunities, and never give up. It's all about finding solutions and opportunities and creating your support system. To me, that's my parents, my spouse, my kids, and it's about taking it ahead. So that's that, Sukriti.
Thank you, Lakuma. I think that was a wonderful wrap-up story from your end that we could conclude our show with. Thank you so much for that. And I have had a great time listening to each one of you. And I'm sure, audience watching us today would have, grabbed so much from your learnings that you have shared with us. Thank you so much for sharing your stories, your knowledge, experience, and let our audience know, because when we say diversity, we are, talking about everyone, right? When we although this entire event is for women in tech, but our conference is all about diversity, equity, and inclusion. So we would like to stick to that, and we would like to address each one of you who is important, and that's what all of us are trying to do. And that's what our stories are all about. So thank you so much. I had a wonderful time and a lot of learnings as well. So kudos to all of us. Thank you, Geetha, Lakuma, Arundathi, Sharbani, Sudha, and Pallavi, who's dropped. She had a hard stop for something else. I think some meeting that she had to go for. But thank you so much. I am overwhelmed with what everyone has shared, and I'm sure we're going to carry up these stories and make it an inspiration, right? Women who are watching us, if you have a knack for coding and a passion to beat others with your programming skills, we invite you to come participate and claim the name, fame, and glory you deserve at Geek Goddess 2022 this year. So please go ahead, register yourself, and this is just the beginning of what we have planned for you in terms of building an inspiration and bringing in women in tech to share their stories and give you some more motivation to move forward in your career. So that calls out for a wrap. Thank you so much once again, everyone. Please stay safe, take care, and have a wonderful day. Geetha, Lakuma, Arundathi, Sharbani, Sudha, and Pallavi, thank you so much. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.